Welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. This is episode number 47. With me, as always, is Trevor Jaffe. People probably thought that, we might not be doing this anymore because you have kind of like an illegitimate child between us with the new podcast. It was like finding out you're being cheated on through social media. That's how it was. I saw the podcast up on Instagram. I was like, huh. Interesting.
Are you a little jealous?
Yes, I'm extremely jealous. The
It's
same way
funny
I get
because
jealous when you get invited to do seminars by yourself.
well, I'm popular. People like me. I have people skills. I talk to the engineers so the customers don't have to. I hope somebody gets that reference from Office Space. Um, it's something we talked about on this podcast before that I wanted to have a separate podcast. It's not so much a training only podcast. So that's the thing with that one. It's success in life and on the platform or sport. We have a tag that's success in life and sport. And Rylan actually talked about bringing you on because, there's, especially in the last episode, the intro episode was action takers versus action fakers. And you're like one of the most action taking persons I know. Get up and move across country. You're welcome. That's very complimentary. Get up, move across country several times to learn, expand, starting a supplement company, starting a nutrition company, starting a gym, starting an online training company. Like Tony is a person who is not afraid to take action. And if you're going to fail, you're not really going to fail. I mean, that's what people fail or fear, but you're going to learn as you go. And there's an expression that everything is figure outable as you go. You don't have to know everything to start. You just have to have the courage to start, and then you learn as you go, which is why we want to do the podcast because, fear holds so many people back. So it's kind of one of those take action podcasts.
I like it. I was listening.
We'll talk about training. We'll talk about life. It's fun.
Yeah, I listened to it, and one of the things you were talking about is how to allocate your time and resources. And I agree with you 100%. But man, you feel like such a cunt when you do it. Like I had a guy come over to wash my car yesterday because I didn't want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours washing my car. I had a bunch of stuff to do. But I felt super douchey. I was like, they got this guy in the parking lot coming to wash my car, and I'm like super fancy and shit. And it's like, but I get it. It's necessary if you want to get stuff done. If you're doing the remedial stuff like cutting your own grass, washing your own car, doing the stuff that, from what I've always saw and what I've always done myself is if it can be outsourced, you try to outsource it yourself so that you can focus on the big ticket items, the things that actually make you money. Manual labor never makes you money. It's always going to cost you time. It's always going to cost you effort. And if you're anything like me, it's going to cost you a lot of frustration and a lot of trips to fucking Home Depot because you don't get it all right the first time.
Yeah, I never do. And that's really what you have to look at as a cost value ratio is how much time is it going to cost you and how much quicker would it be to pay somebody else? And not only that, but chances are they're going to do a much better job at it. Like this guy washes cars every day for a living. He's going to wash that car 10 times better than you ever could. And he's going to do it in less time. And all it's going to cost you is, whatever his fee was. Versus, like you said, if you did it, it would take you 2.5, 3 hours and you still wouldn't do the job he did. So it allowed you to free up your time. So let's say it cost you $25, $30. It freed up 3 hours of your time that you can focus on, education for your business or your schooling because you're going back to school, marketing, product design, program writing, nutrition, reviews, videos, whatever. Your time is more valuable than that. Not that his time isn't valuable. He's putting a price on his time, but it saves you so much time. So you're just looking at the value versus, expense ratio. Yeah. And I don't want to insult anybody, but if you go to like business meetings, they call this the $10 task. If somebody else can do the task for you in less time and better for $10, you're better off paying them than doing it yourself because you're wasting your time, which is your most valuable resource.
Yeah, the way I always look at it is, and not to steal the thunder from your new podcast, which everyone should listen to, Successories, right?
The Successory Show, yeah.
Yeah, the Successory Show, which is a fucking tongue twister. It's not a tongue twister. It's like a one of those things where you either like blur it all together or you enunciate it perfectly. But I'll mostly blur it all together.
Everything sounds like that, anyways.
That's true. That is true. But the way I always look at it is, if I value my time as say $150 an hour, if anything goes below that in terms of dollars per hour, then just hire it out because you're wasting time, you're wasting money doing it that way. So once you figure out what your value is, especially as trainers. We tend to, especially as trainers just starting off in the business, it's like, man, I'm just starting off. So this guy wants to hire me, but he can only afford this. So I'm going to cut him this deal. And it's like, you cut this person a deal, you cut that person a deal. And then next thing you know, your rates are like half of what you actually want to be paid. You end up resenting that person. And I guarantee you, and I don't know if this holds true for you, which I would have to assume it does, people that pay you half price also give half the effort, and they give
100%.
they're always that person that's looking for more, like, oh, I don't have this week, or I don't have this that week, and it's something that is you pay for what you get. And same thing with clients. What you accept is what you get as well. And if you accept someone that's always looking for deals, then you're going to get that client that you just don't ever want to work with. And I think that's a good way to start thinking about, how to allocate your resources, how to allocate your time, and what you should be focusing on. And I understand in the very beginning, it's tough. You want to make money, but you also don't want to be resentful for your work too, because you're fucking working with cheap people. I can't stand cheap people. If they don't value your time and effort and energy as a coach, then that's an issue. Why would you hire the person in the first place if you're looking for a discount?
You can't blame them if you devalue yourself. Like, everyone's
True.
looking for a deal. But if you take that deal and you lower your rates, you've devalued yourself to that person. You've already said my information is not as valuable as I'm actually charging. This is what I'm willing to take for it. You extremely devalue yourself. And like you said, those people, because they've already devalued you, will not give you their full attention.
Yeah.
And I have an expression I really like, is those that pay attention. And it's an investment base. So if they're paying your full price, they're going to give you their full effort because they don't want to waste their investment. That's how I look at it.
That's a great way to look at it, man. And you brought up going to school, and I started back to school this week, and it was first week of grad school. And I'm a very much a shy, introverted person. If you know me, it's not my strong suit to get out there and socialize in situations where I don't feel comfortable, if I don't know people. But we spent one of my classes, we spent the first like 45 minutes introducing ourselves. And I was sitting next to this girl, 6 feet apart, of course, with our masks on, because I don't want to fucking catch any nasty disease. And she was like explaining her background, and she's from the Pacific Northwest. She's from Oregon. And she was like, yeah, I did a year in community college at this place in Wenatchee, Washington. I was like, oh, Wenatchee. That sounds super familiar. Oh, that's where Dave Osborne
Yep.
is. And the girl was like a power lifter, or I'm assuming she's a power lifter based off of her structure. No offense to people that are structurally.
I think Tony just politely called her a full-figured gal.
Yes. But she tracks her macros, so it's cool. Because I also learned about at every body type or something like that. I don't know. Super weird. We had to go talk about it for 30 minutes about how we're going to use the word fat loss and how that may be not necessarily the nicest words to say around certain people. It was fucking ridiculous. Like, if you're fat, you're fat. You just need to lose some weight. It's not that big of a deal. No one's trying to say you're a bad person. You just can't stop eating. But yeah. So anyway, she was talking about all her stuff, and I was like, oh, this would be a great way to break the ice. Be like, oh, hey, you must know Dave Osborne, right? Like, he owns a gym out there. So I was like, hey, I heard that you're from Wenatchee, and I was just wondering if you knew Dave Osborne. She was like, who? I was like, oh
man, poor
yeah,
Dave right now. Dave's like, really, because he listens. He's like, oh, come on, Tony.
Yeah, she was like, who? I was like, yeah, he owns a gym out there, Osborne Performance. Have you ever heard of him? And she's like, no. I was like, oh, okay. So I just kind of like awkwardly walked away. I was like, all right, this ends this conversation. So much for having that, thing that kind of binds us together. So Dave, I know your town's probably like 100 people. It's not the biggest town in the world. It's called Wenatchee, which makes me think of banjo players in Kentucky. But yeah, what's going on, man? Get your shit together. People should know who you are. This is ridiculous.
Realistically, though, I think his gym is still closed due to restrictions. I don't even think he's been able to open his gym yet.
She wasn't there for coronavirus. She was there years ago. So maybe it wasn't Dave wasn't the hotshot trainer he is now.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things where you might know him by like his Instagram name Dave's big on Reddit. I'd never heard of Reddit until Dave. Dave introduced me to Reddit. That's how old I am. I think he's got like Big Coach D or something on there.
She didn't know any acronyms. She didn't know any Instagram handles. Once I embarrassed myself the first time by just using his full name, I was like, I'm not going to go into a bunch of different fucking
Yeah.
things, so
True.
we can identify that she doesn't know this person, and then I can awkwardly walk away and be like, hey, I gave it a shot, college try, didn't work out. I'll talk to you in 2 years once we graduate.
You see, she's gonna come up to you and she's like, you know that Trevor Jaffe guy, you know?
Oh man,
Really? Yeah, that's my co-host.
that
He's
hasn't
around.
happened yet. That hasn't happened yet. I'm sure it will one of these days. But if especially if we go somewhere together, it'll be like, oh, you know Trevor. I'm like, what do you mean? Do I know Trevor?
So I'm just as shy as you, believe it or not, but I've learned how to be an extroverted introvert through like online. I can just be whoever I want. And like in person, I'm like a wallflower. Like I don't go out of my way to talk to people or do things. And it's one of those things where having like the colored mohawk or the weird shoes was great because people would come up to me. It was
Yeah.
like an automatic icebreaker because someone would want to come up and comment on the stupidity of my shoes, my shorts, or my hair. So now that the hair is gone and my shorts have been on, my underwear's not exposed. It's like I have less communication with people, so I'm left out. I don't know
What
what
do
to
you
do
bring
now.
to the table? Not much anymore.
Yeah, all my eight cards gone now. I'm stuck with nothing but ones and twos.
You poor thing. It's gonna
Yeah,
be a sufferable rest of your life, man.
it's over. It's all
Good thing
downhill.
you have Riley there to bring you up, so to
Yeah,
speak.
she still sticks out for me with the purple hair and the tattoos and the quads. So thankfully I got that going for me.
Thankfully, yeah, exactly. Before we get into the questions, I wanted to touch on one little topic that I think is extremely important and gets often overlooked. And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because it came to the forefront with one of my clients that we both know, Paul Milano, who runs Resilient Training Lab. Super intelligent coach, one of the brightest minds in the industry, in my opinion. I do his nutrition for him, and as long as we've been working together, he's had gut issues for the
Mm-hmm.
longest time, and we tried pinpointing it with like X, Y, and Z, or is it Z? All the smart people say Z, right? Because they want to sound like they're fucking smarter than saying Z. X, Y, and Z. We tried them all, and there'd be one week where like, oh, we figured it out, and then it would be fucked, and then he would go from being 240 pounds eating right around 6,500 calories to 230 pounds only being able to eat 2,200 calories in the matter of week. And that was like this continuing peak and valleys of his weight progression, and we just couldn't figure it out for the life of us. But as a coach, you always got to ask questions. You always got to probe. You can't just be like, well, we can't figure it out. We're just going to have to deal with it, right? We're going to have to play the cards we're dealt, and your stomach's going to be fucked for the rest of your life. And it's like, well, what else can we do? What else? What other biomarkers can we look at? And we looked at his sleep. Well, no, we actually looked at his blood glucose, and he was like, "Hey, man, I checked my blood glucose, and that's what's great about having an athlete who is knowledgeable themselves or who's seeking knowledge themselves and is not just an athlete who just takes orders, that they're constantly trying to figure this stuff out on their own too." So he's like, "Hey man, I checked my blood glucose. It was like 98. It's ridiculously high. Everyone that knows Paul, he's a very lean guy. His blood glucose shouldn't be that high. That's close to being or that's like right at being pre-diabetic." I was like,
I
"Man,
think
that's
100 is the benchmark, right, or something like
yeah,
that.
100 is the benchmark." I was like, "Man, that's super odd." And then I was like, what's postglandular? And postglandular, for those who don't know, is taking your blood glucose again after a meal, probably like 2 to 3 hours after a meal. And that'll kind of give you another marker. And those are the two good markers that you can look at to figure out, where your blood glucose is. And it went down after eating. So that tells me, oh man, like you're not able to release cortisol at night. You must not be sleeping good. And that's why your blood glucose is high, because your body's not operating during sleep to do the things that it has to do to lower cortisol, to lower blood glucose. I was like, have you ever thought about getting a sleep test? He's like, my girlfriend's told me I should because she thinks I have sleep apnea, but I've never tried. Lo and behold, we also were thinking about going to get his poop checked out, but that was going to
You're
be
going
that
on
was
the
going to be
list to try.
next. That was
Yeah.
going to be next. Maybe get a fecal transplant if worst case scenario, which that it has to be worst case scenario because it sounds fucking awful. So he goes to the sleep test and they find out he has sleep apnea. And it's been a week since he's got his CPAP in. Stomach issues cleared up. Weight has continuously risen. He's at 242 now, and he's eating 6,500 calories, no problem. And why I bring that up is so many times as coaches, we ask athletes, hey, get your blood work done. Hey, check your blood glucose. Hey, get a sleep test done. Hey, do this. And athletes are so, nonchalant about it. Like, oh, it's not a big deal. I don't really need to do that. They just blow it off. Whereas like they'll fucking ask you 20 times like, oh hey man, do you think if I get like a 3/4 inch heel or a 7/8 inch heel, that's gonna make a big you think that'll add 50 pounds to my squat? It's like you want to micromanage that shit. That doesn't mean absolutely not like, oh, what knee sleeve should I get? I have 8 pairs. Do you think there's any other kind that'll be better, that'll boost my squat? It's like, no. Well, if I get like you guys are so micro focused on the minutia that doesn't really play any role in your improvement, but you won't fast for the morning to go get your blood work done, or you won't get a sleep test because it's inconvenient. And the idea that you're letting these inconveniences disturb your ability to make true progress, because that's where you start to make the huge progress in whatever endeavor it is, whether it's physique enhancement, whether it's getting stronger. Sleep, nutrition, proper programming, those are the most important things that are going to drive adaptation and stress management, right? But nobody wants to meditate. Nobody wants to do these things that will allow them to become better, but they're going to do all this other stupid shit, right? And it just makes no sense to me as athletes when your coach asks you to do something, they're not asking you to do it because it's not a big deal or because they don't have empathy for your lack of time or maybe your lack of finances. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, you're paying me as a coach. I want the absolute best for you. These are the important things that are going to drive your progress to like the next level faster than any program I can give you. And they're just like, no, not a big deal. Not a big
Measure
deal.
what matters. That's
Right.
what it all comes down to, is measure what matters. And people do. I had a similar response to that because somebody asked me about like what was the best like mouth guard, and I'm like, really?
Right.
This is like the last freaking thing you should be worried about. I wasn't trying to call the guy out. I'm like, I'm not saying this is you, but people focus so much on the minutia and the bullshit. It's like any mouth guard. I don't care if you paid $20 for it or $500 for it from your dentist or whatever.
That
But if you
fucking
want to live
boil
with a
and
mouth
bite
guard,
shit that you use in Pop Warner football, man.
Exactly. It's all it is. It's something to keep you from cracking your teeth. It's not like if it's angled a certain way, you create more force production. It's literally just make you don't grind your teeth down.
Right. It's just like,
Same with the shoe, same with the belt.
Yeah.
It's all the same. They're all doing the same job. They're not going to have such a measurable difference, but your sleep, your hydration, your nutrition, and your stress adaptation will.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I ate twice yesterday, ate 5 times today. It's like, fuck, man, I'm not even asking you to do a diet. All I'm asking you is to eat 5 times a day, big meals. Like, how hard is that to do?
That's my favorite thing to do all day is eat and poop.
Right.
So if you put me on a regimen where I'm eating and pooping, I'm going to love you for it.
Yeah, it's like put down the Xbox or whatever PlayStation 22, whatever the fuck it is, pretty soon it'll be virtual reality. And just
No. We're going beyond that now. Now we have augmented reality.
oh, that's okay. Okay, I like it.
Augmented reality is when you go watch like a TV and there'll be like a projection map on the back of the TV. So when you're in like underwater scenes, the water will come across all your walls and stuff. So you don't even have to put the headset on. So now we've moved on. We've bypassed virtual. We're going into augmented reality.
Dang. I like that. Yeah. And then
Tony.
yeah. Fuck. It's like quit being so easily distracted and just focus on your goals and your performance, because trust me, like the amount of time that you have to improve may seem like forever right now as a beginner, but 10 to 15 years passes by fast. And if you want to be good at the sport, you need to dedicate as much time and effort into improvements within that time frame, because once your time has gone and passed, you can do whatever you want to be perfect. The idea of between 20 to 35 is when you're going to see the most amount of progress. Mm-hmm. And if you just fuck around at those days, those years, and think that you're going to make it up when you get older, you're fucking going to be very disappointed. You're going to be very much left scratching your head being like, man, I wish I would have just listened to my coach. I wish I would have just done this right. And you have all those guys that have these regrets in life because they didn't take it seriously at the time when it mattered the most. And that's kind of what I'm getting at here is just like, yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's going to cost you money. But fuck, man, like getting your health in the right order, getting your life in order, sleeping, eating, all that stuff, stress management, that's not something that's just going to help you with powerlifting. That's going to help you with
life.
Yeah, with life in general, right? Especially the stress management part. So just stuff to think about. for anyone that actually cares to listen.
See, this is why nobody invites you places because, like, man, Tony's such a downer.
That's true. That is
He
true.
just made me think about the next 10 to 15 years of my life, and all I wanted to do was play Xbox or PlayStation 22.
Oh man, I had like between 5 and 10 direct messages after the ritual podcast I did of like, oh man, thanks for putting all that information out there. This is something that I've been dealing with, and just giving people like the downer side of reality of like, hey man, like get your shit together. It's
That's
important to
reality.
them.
You were
Yeah.
100% in control of the outcome of your life, and everyone's like, "Woe is me," or "Why is this happening to me?" It's not happening to you. It's happening for you. You have to learn how to control it. You have to learn how to manage it and deal with it because it's not going to stop. As long as you're alive, it's not going to stop. Life doesn't get easier. You just get stronger and better able to handle it. So you have to build these systems and these processes up. Same with powerlifting. That's why I like it. It's the ultimate personal development sport. You're learning how to have better and better habits in every aspect of life that you can carry over.
Yeah, no, I agree. So enough of that. Let's get on to the questions. This week, questions were far and few between, but thankfully, we had questions from last week still, which is very weird how we get this like huge ebb and flow of questions.
Like last week we had like 20 plus questions, and this
Yeah.
week we have 6.
Shame on you guys. Let's see. Nope, covered that one. Top 3 books for coaches to read.
Oh man.
So
Tough.
one of my favorite books for coaches to read is Nothing About the X's and O's. It is Conscious Coaching by
Brett Bartholomew.
Bert Bartholomew.
Brett
Double
Bartholomew.
B's.
Yeah, right, Brett. Yeah.
Is it Brett or Bert?
Yeah, Brett
Okay,
Bartholomew.
yeah. Great book on the art of communication with athletes and understanding if you have this kind of athlete, you communicate with them this way. You have this kind of athlete, you communicate with them that way. So you start to develop these intricacies of how to communicate with certain people. You start to develop empathy for those people, and you can put yourself in their shoes, which is going to make you the best coach possible. Communication is everything. You may learn all the X's and O's, but if you can't communicate that well with certain people, if you're a screamer and you have athletes that don't respond to screaming, you have to understand how to talk to them. It's not because they're soft and they need to be hardened up because they can't stand someone screaming. That's just their personality type. So being able to communicate is going to build buy-in. Once you have buy-in, you can pretty much tell them to run their head through a brick wall, and they'll do it, as long as they believe in you and know that, hey, I trust this guy. So that one is one of my favorite ones. I think any basic periodization book by Tudor Bompa is a good one to start with, or Zatsiorsky's book
Science and Practice of
Science and
Training.
Practice with Will Kramer, I think, is the co-author, or he forwarded it or something. He has to do with it.
He may have
Or Fry.
translated it. Yeah.
One of those guys, but
Yeah.
that's a really good book. It kind of gives you a basic rundown of things. Let's see. If you have anything, just jump in.
Okay, so along the lines of conscientious coaching is Old School Grit. I cannot remember the author right now. It's on my bookshelf, and it is a great story because it relates to coaching and teaching value and lessons to athletes. It is a story of a college basketball coach who has a great career, and he gets diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so he's writing down all these lessons he teaches to his athletes as letters to his grandson. So it goes over like 22 principles that he uses with his team and talks about them, which are great as a coach to understand how you relate to an athlete and how you relate to your family and your son and so forth, which was important to me because I have a son. But it's a great book called Old School Grit, and it's written in that format of a teaching format. So this coach is, while he's dying, is taking everything he can that he's teaching these valuable lessons to his team. They end up having a great team. They make like the Sweet 16, and they're like a small college, like that Cinderella season team. And he's relaying all and writing all stuff down. So his grandson has it because he's going to die before he grows up. So he wants to make sure he has all these lessons that he would teach all of these kids because he spent his whole life teaching people how to be an athlete and how to be a professional, how to be a person. So it's a great book, that one.
Yeah, it's
Old School Grit.
Old School Grit, Times May Change, but the Rules for Success Never Do by Darren Donnelly.
Donnelly, that's exactly it. Darren Donnelly. Great book. Very easy read, quick read. I'm not even caffeinated. That's a great one. I really like It's So Hard to Get Through. I have it on Audible, which kind of helps me. But the book Influence by Robert Cialdini, which is basically a communication format the same way as conscientious coaching. And it's how you deal and relate with the people and get them to listen to you and how you can influence their decision making and stuff like that. It's not meant to be, he's a psychologist. It's not meant to be like a marketing thing. It's just meant to be how you communicate with people to get them to follow along and understand and create buy-in. So I think it's a great book for people to have. Rob Cialdini's Influence. I do like a lot of distilled Russian information as far as training programs. So a lot of the older Pavel Tsatsouline books have some of that, like Power to the People Professional. He goes over like this is where Shaco was introduced to the world. So Pavel Tsatsouline actually is who introduced Shaco to the American world, probably in like 2001, before anyone really knew who he was, and translated some of his articles, which were for his programs. But he talks about all the different Russian things. It's also where things like the Smolov squat cycle and stuff like that came from there in these books. So it gives you a lot of history, Russian history. A lot of that was like single ply lifting, but the formats and how they're programmed. And then he has one with Dan John where they talk about it, and it's called Easy Strength, and they use all these Russian periodization programs. So it's really easy for people to understand periodized programming through those books. Those are great to have as a powerlifting programmer. But like you said, I like to lead with that coaching aspect because let's be honest here, if you have any level of progressive overload and you manage your stress somewhat well and have the deload, most people, 75% of people are going to see some level of progress as long as they're consistent. And that consistently comes more from the buy-in and the belief in the program than the actual structure of the program. And I don't mean that people who write tremendous programs, there are great stuff out there from like Eric Helms and even Ripito has a practical programming book, which isn't bad, even though his squat form is shit. But it's getting that buy-in, getting that communication level. So if you want to coach people, you have to be able to communicate with people. And clearly Tony and I are both shy individuals. We're still able to do so.
Yeah.
And that is key. You know, if you can't communicate your message is meaningless. So that's the most important thing to learn is how to communicate.
Yeah, and if you're thinking in terms of more practical application for training, I mean, those books are all out there, and everyone regurgitates them every time. You know, Super Training, any type of Russian last name, Isurin's periodization books are really good. Any articles on Elite, not any articles, but articles on Elite FTS go over periodization really well. If you're looking for maybe the ideas of where muscles connect to and insertion points and origin from more of a anatomical to biomechanical kind of idea, you can look at Anatomy Trains. It's a really good book that was made for mostly massage therapists and stuff like that. And then also the kinesiology book by Dr. Michael Yesis. Yes,
the thesis.
Yeah, Yesis.
Kinesiology of exercise, which apparently I'm missing because when you came down to visit, oh my God, it's here somewhere and I couldn't find it.
I have it. I stole it a long time ago.
See? Tony took my book.
Yes, it's a good book. You know, and then depending on what you're looking to do, any type of college level book is going to give you the blueprint of any type of metabolism, bioenergetics, anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, physics. Like, get a college level book. It's going to be fucking rough if you have no background in it. Take a class. You know, those things are worth it for sure.
Absolutely. At least understand structural anatomy. I mean, you don't have to understand biochemistry, but at least understand structural anatomy. You know, muscles pull bones, what innervates them, what is their actual muscle actions. Those are important things to know.
Yes. So advice/tips for a lifter going forward after achieving a goal they've worked 3+ years for. So you get that a lot. People get burnt out after they've reached their pinnacle of their career, which could be a 1,500 pound total, could be a 2,000 pound total. Could be just doing their first competition, right? They get that feeling of, you know, I've accomplished this. People diet all the time, have that same feeling. And then what do I do next? And most people that diet get fat afterwards. So that's not what you want to do. Or maybe it is. Who knows? Live your life. All sizes matter. But I think when you live your life by these goal-oriented processes, it can leave a lot to be desired. It can leave the idea of acknowledging where you come from and how far you've come and what you just accomplished. It doesn't allow you to enjoy that too much. So I'm not big on goals. I don't really ever set goals myself, which some people may find odd, that someone owns businesses and has somewhat of a moderately decent powerlifting career, doesn't have goals. I've had them in the past, but I found that over the years, they don't create any joy or fulfillment in my life, whether I achieve them or I don't. They create a little bit more angst, and they create a little bit more desire to focus on the things that I don't have instead of focusing on the things that I do. So I don't really ever think about that stuff. I just think about what makes me happy, what can I enjoy for that day, and if it's training, it's like, well, I can just train as hard as I can, and the outcome is the outcome. For people that are more goal driven, which is not necessarily a bad thing, to each their own. I think just focusing on getting back to a place that you enjoy training, doing things a little bit differently, but still training hard, will allow you to clear your mind, to reset and focus on newer goals. Set small benchmarks throughout the year that you can accomplish that'll lead you to those ultimate goals. And that's kind of the approach that I would do, is just small goals and then lead into one big goal, and then just rinse and repeat that. But also just enjoying the process as it goes along. Making sure that you're there for every moment, and that you don't just think about, I hit this big total that I trained 3 years for. What do I do next? Be like, man, I worked my ass off for 3 years. Let me just sit down and enjoy this. And, some people may be like, you're just resting on your laurels, and that's not a good thing. And those people are probably going to be 50 years old posting on Instagram about how badass they used to be, like Al Bundy, where he's fucking scored 5 touchdowns in a single game.
Whole football game. Yeah. Now he's
still wearing their varsity Letterman jacket and shit. They're just not happy with where their life is because they peaked so soon, and that's all they can think about. But
I think that's great. You talk about gratitude. I mean, I'm summing it up in one word, but you talk about being grateful for what you have accomplished and enjoying it and being present every day. And like you said, you don't look at your past achievements as your only achievements. You keep trying to find out what you can enjoy within each day, which is really important, to have that perspective of gratitude and be grateful for what you've already accomplished and what you already have, and celebrate it. And like Tony said, if you've worked your ass off for 3 years, absolutely commend yourself for your achievement, because that is an achievement. It was a goal you hit. I threw away every accomplishment I have, and I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean, I literally threw away every trophy and medal I ever have, because I don't care. I don't care to look backwards at what I used to do. I'm a very forwards looker. Is what can I accomplish now if I try hard enough? So I keep joking with Riley that she supports my crazy, because I keep having all these like ambitious ideas. If I want to create this and I want to do that and I want to provide value here, my goals, they go beyond the platform at this point, because I'm 40. I still enjoy training. I'll never not enjoy training, and whether or not I compete again isn't going to determine my joy as far as training. And even if I don't PR on a platform, it's not going to determine my joy anymore. When I was younger, it did. I wanted to see that I had measurable progress on the platform. I look at it now as, when I go to compete, I'm going to have 10 to 15 athletes that I coach there. We're going to have a good time. We're going to socially interact, which is important. And I'm grateful for that moment, and that I'm healthy enough that I get to do it. So I find gratitude in that aspect. And then, I also find gratitude in how much value I can offer the community. So I put a lot of educational content out there. That's why I have 2 podcasts now. It's why I have a weekend Q&A. It's why I have, interview sections with clients, or do seminars and stuff like that. Like Tony and I do the Coaches Corner seminars. I want to teach all the things I've learned and help someone learn them faster, so they don't have to go through the struggles and trials and tribulations I had. So, your goal base should be, and I wrote this in my story a little bit, about something like 10 years down the line should kind of scare you. 5 years, you should be halfway there. And then 1 year, what are the steps you have to take to start to get there? And then look at it and how you can achieve it in 2. That's how I look at it, is what excites you. And what I mean by excites you is what, like Tony actually called it anxiety, but what excites you enough that you're like, can I even achieve this? And then start planning of how you can achieve it and who you need in your life to help you achieve it. So I don't look at a goal as a standard concrete, like I need to make this much money or I need to lift this much weight. Is it possible for me to even do this? Because that scares me. And then I get excited by it. I'm like, who do I need on my team to help me get there? And how much value will this add to somebody else's life, which is going to make fulfillment for mine? If I add value to others, I feel fulfilled in my own life. So that's kind of how I look at it. That's where I'm at with goal setting. I know this guy's looking for like a concrete number. Let's say I hit 1,500. Should I aim for 16? Of course you should. Unless you want to be done powerlifting, you should aim to achieve more and get stronger. But I wouldn't consider that a life's goal. That's just an ambition, an aim to improve to that level. That's an improvement more than it is a goal. Hitting a number on a platform is an achievement, but it's not a life's goal.
Right.
Competing for 10 years at a high level, that's more of an achievement as well. But changing to sport where you now coach, 30 to 40 youth athletes, and they're outreach athletes, and they're no longer going down and committing crimes. Like I know, like Travis Rogers has like his outreach program for at risk and stuff like that. That's a goal. he's impacting people's lives. Whether you like his style or you don't, he's impacting people's lives in a positive way. That's a goal to aspire towards on and off the platform. Like, be the person you want the rest of the world to be is a goal to aspire towards. Whether Travis lifts 1900, 2000, or even 1600, he's doing something admirable, and that's a goal to aim towards, not the number he's hitting on the platform. Now, within that frame, he still wants to improve on the platform, but he's elevating himself through the other aspects, which is great.
Well, I mean, if you total 1,600 and you're a man, that's really not something to be proud of. But, well, I digress. But, you have it from just joking. Just joking, all you guys that don't total 1,600. Super studly and manly, I promise. But two different ideas of what they think about goals, and from two people that are decently successful within their careers in sports. So it's not a one size fits all answer. You got to find what works best for your personality and what works best for you. And I think that's the important thing to take away from any answer you get on a question, is like there could be multiple different answers, like redundancy, but that's just the way I talk. So be kind.
Within your big lifetime achievement goal, what are the small things you can accomplish on the way? And don't look at it as like, I have to hit this goal all or none, because that's just not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So next up we have, let's see, in a low bar squat, what would you consider hips rising before chest acceptable if it's not too excessive?
No, I wouldn't consider that acceptable. I would consider that a shitty squat pattern.
Wait a minute. If I complete the lift and it looks like a Pete Rubish good morning squat, that's a win. That's a touchdown. I got it.
It's a lift that counts, provided you hit depth. But would I call it a good lift? No. I mean, ideally, your hips and your chest should rise at the same time. Now, granted, if you have a low bar squat, there's going to be forward chest lean. You cannot avoid forward lean in a low bar squat. That's the whole point of having a low bar, because it puts it closer to the center of your hips. It's going to cause you to lean forward. As long as the rules say, as long as you hit depth and come back up with control, it's a good lift. That's a good lift by the standards. Is it a clean lift? No. There's a good chance that if you can get your hips and your chest to rise at the same time, you're going to lift more weight.
Yeah.
Because as much as Pete Rubish deadlifts, his squat doesn't come anywhere near his deadlift because his form is not outstanding. So that form holds him back from showing how strong he actually is. Because we can see here's a guy nearing a 900-pound deadlift. He's physically strong, and it's conventional too. So form, dictates function. And if your form is poor, your function is probably not as ideal as it could be. Now, does it mean it's not safe? That's up for debate. Paul will tell you no, and then other people will tell you yes. Maybe you're increasing your chance of injury. I'm not going to take either side, because I think that has more to do with the stress adaptation than anything else. When you're fatigued and you break down, you're not recovering. That's when you really increase your chances, whether you have poor form or not. But if you can make your form a bit more ideal, you'll probably lift more weight, which will help your total in the long run. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like Trevor said, always think about injury prevention first. If this setup is putting you in a position that's going to increase your risk of injury, then it's never a good thing. And if you get really strong in that position and your risk of injury is minimal, then you got to look at like, okay, well, is this going to eventually limit my ability to progress? If I get the most out of this lifting the way I can, is that ultimately going to give me my genetic potential for that lift, or am I going to have to fix it eventually? And if the answer is I'm going to have to fix it eventually, then just fix it right now, right?
Yeah, start sooner rather than later.
Right, don't continue to enforce and ingrain bad habits, knowing that you have to fix it down the road. And, people that sumo deadlift that don't have loosey-goosey hips like me, I don't have loosey-goosey hips. I'm the bad example of the sumo deadlift, where it looks like, people are like, oh man, your sumo looks a lot like conventional. It's like, yeah, but I deadlift over 700 pounds, so it's cool. It's like, well, no, it's not cool, because I had hard limitations on where I could go with that lift, because I was stubborn, and I was like, well, it's progressing, so I'm just going to continue to do that until my hip was like, no, you're not. You're an asshole. You're not going to continue to do that. I had to start pulling conventional because of that. So it's one of those things where just because you're able to improve at something, if you know that it's a limitation in your current technique, fix it right away, because the stronger you get, the more susceptible you are to injuries, and technique is extremely important. The stronger you get, technique is going to make and break 99% of your lifts at that higher level.
It really makes or breaks your third attempts. You can
Yep.
get away with some stuff with 85, 90%, but when it comes to be 100%, you usually can't get away with things. So your technique, if that's what we always joke about the misgroove. You didn't misgroove anything. You weren't strong enough to hold a position.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a technical issue. It was a strength issue.
Right. It's always something. It's never my fault. It's fucking gravity. Gravity was extra heavy today, or yeah, the misgroove or the lift off. I don't know. It's always something. But yeah, definitely try to just fix it. You just asking the question, you know that it's not an acceptable thing to do. So just fix that issue. In terms of squats, this would be a very easy one. Do you see correlations between body structure and certain techniques? And it's like, yes, of course,
Absolutely.
right? There's
Yeah.
certain people that can do high bar squats based on their morphological features, whether it be femur length, torso length. That's going to allow them to be more proficient at high bar squats. There's going to be people who are built to do low bar squats. The idea is just work both of them and figure out which one you feel strongest in, and that's your competition squat. Your competition squat isn't a bar placement. It's a squat that allows you personally to lift the most
Most
weight
weight.
possible. That's the most important thing. Pretty simple one. Yes, there are morphological things that can dictate any lift that you have, and that's just the way it is. And it sucks for you if you want to squat a certain way and you're just not built that way. Yeah, if you can't high bar squat and have your knees travel forward, you're gonna have fucking small ass quads. You're not gonna have these Asian quads where all these Asian guys can just fucking high bar squat and they have the most beautiful teardrop quads in the world, like
Yeah.
Andy Wong and all those other Asian guys that I don't know because he's the only one that I know. But I'm not
I think
racist
he just
because I
man
have one
crushed
Asian.
Andy's.
I have one Asian friend. I'm not racist. I
I
swear.
think he just man crushed Andy's legs, though. I was like,
Well, yeah, they're extremely impressive.
Andy, I want you to know you have beautiful quads.
Gorgeous quads. I don't know the color of your hair or eyes or what your face looks like, but your quads are beautiful.
It's actually true, so I'm not gonna disagree. And he has like a very somewhat semi. I don't. He doesn't use like a true low bar because he uses like a mid bar placement and a lot of forward knee drive, and he does squat like an Asian weightlifter.
Right.
So I guess
Right.
there's some stereotypical things are factual.
Well,
So
that's the reason they're stereotypes because there
yeah,
are some
statistically
truth.
showing to be
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely morphological considerations that you always have to look at that'll dictate exercise selection, that'll dictate exercise movement. Don't be ignorant to the fact that like, hey, if this, every time I do overhead presses, my shoulders hurt. Fucking don't do overhead presses anymore. God damn it, you're not built to do them. You have the clavicles of a fucking 2-year-old little child. What's wrong with you?
I actually had to do not overheads, but having Matt Domney work on some of my movements, and he wanted me to do a cross arm front squat, and I fucking hate it. I can actually front rack a bar, and it felt so much more comfortable to front rack a bar than it would to cross arm. It just felt so uncomfortable for me to cross arm because I've been front racking a barbell now for 12 years. I'm like, this is awful.
Fuck front squats. They're the worst exercise ever.
Tony has 2-year-old clavicles.
I just can't bend my wrists. My wrists are so stiff. It's pathetic. You
Takes
have
me a
to.
couple minutes to get. I'm not gonna lie. It takes me a few minutes of stretching to get under there.
Yes. Let's see. Not. You had a question, didn't
Yeah, this is
you?
a good one from Gabriel. Things to consider when transitioning from local meets to larger national, international meets. Things like travel, food, preparation, elevation, the comp itself, etc. What would you consider going from a local meet to a national meet?
Well, elevation. I don't really know if that's going to play a huge factor as power lifters.
Not in one rep, no.
If you're if you're fucking having elevation issues and you can't catch your breath after a single, you just need to just quit what you're doing, go to the hospital because you're gonna fucking die.
And single with like 15 minutes of rest in between.
Yeah,
Sorry, Gabriel, we're picking on you here, but
yeah,
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 it's true.
yeah. No, there's not a lot of EPO injections going on in powerlifting because we need better oxidative capacity. But some of the things to think about, simple things, right? Like, are you cutting weight? Yes, I'm cutting weight. Where's the closest sauna? Where's the closest grocery store? Will they have everything that I'm looking for? Nowadays, you can go onto the store's websites, pick out all your stuff, and have it delivered to your hotel. That way it's all there for you so you don't have to think about things. You can get print out day passes for the gym that actually has a sauna if you need a sauna. Make sure that you have everything in place that you need. If you're going to a Airbnb, set your filters up so that you have what you're looking for. You don't want to go to an Airbnb in Florida and they don't have AC. It's going to be a fucking miserable time. You may go to places in the Pacific Northwest during the summertime where you'd be like, oh, it's the summertime. I don't really need to think about that. Most places in the Pacific Northwest don't have ACs. Some days it's fucking 90 to 100 degrees out there and you're sweating your ass off all day. Those things are important. Check out the gym. Ask the meet director, hey, is it an air conditioned gym? Is it not an air conditioned gym? Those are certain things that if you're a small child of a man, 198 and below, or if you're a female lifter, you may be cold at meets, so you might want to bring a blanket if it's going to be indoors and they have AC. You don't want to be shivering because that's going to decrease your performance. You want to stay warm. If you're traveling, you want to make sure that if you rent a car, perfect, or Airbnb or Lyft. Make sure that you have everything checked out. Make sure that the hotel accommodates all your needs. Make sure that the hotel is close to the venue, especially if it's a bigger meet where the venue is at an expo and fucking parking's a pain in the ass. Get a hotel that's close and Uber there, right? Those are the things that I think about. Get there early because if it's a bigger meet, sometimes bigger meets, you're going to have bigger assholes. Bigger assholes take up one squat rack the whole time and they babysit it like it's theirs and they make it seem like no one else can squat with them while they're warming up. Call that person an asshole. Take off their weights. Squat the weight you want to squat. Trust me, I don't think I've ever been to a powerlifting meet where I was like, this guy's a badass. He could probably whoop my ass. No, we're powerlifters. We don't fucking know how to fight. That's why we lift weights. You punch us one time, we're gonna fucking be out of breath trying to catch you. Not where we want to be. But yeah, just making sure that you interact with the lifters so that you feel comfortable with them being in the warm-up room. Because if you are going to bigger meets, you may be lifting with some of your favorite lifters, and that may be something that creates anxiety. It may be something that makes you insecure. It may be something that puts you in a place where your head's not in the right place because you don't want to look like the awkward person. Maybe you like to wear a mask and a cape while you lift, and now you're not going to do that because your favorite lifters are there and they're going to make fun of you. Interact with them, be yourself, have fun, know that everyone's there to lift the best weights and to lift the best. And they're I don't know. I would say 99% of powerlifters are all pretty friendly. They're all there to have a good time and help each other out. Avoid the assholes. It's very easy to see who the assholes are. It pretty much says it on their forehead. Hey, I'm an asshole. Avoid those people. Let me see. I can't think of anything else. Create checklists. Simple thing. Create checklists. Create a checklist for your gym equipment. Create a checklist for your grocery haul. Create a meet day checklist. And then just knock those things out.
Super huge on that checklist of everything you need to bring to make sure you have it with you ahead of time.
That's because you're old and you can't remember anything.
I know.
I'm the same way.
I don't remember things if they're not written down. Yeah, this is true.
Carry your day planner everywhere so that you fucking know what you got going on.
My day planner is named Riley. I'm like, Riley, what are we doing today?
Oh, smart. That is smart.
But bring more than you think you need.
Yeah.
And that sounds strange, but I've learned that the hard way, that it can go quick. You don't know how long the meet's going to go. So I've had instances where I brought what I thought I needed for the day and the meet was much longer than that and I did not have enough, and then it was a tough day from there. Bring more than you think you need, because even if you don't need it, you can share it with other people who don't have enough when you make friends. And those are the same friends who help you in the warm-up room when there is that asshole. So you guys can get onto the rotation for the bench or the squat if you have to warm up and help each other load plates and things like that. So you're going to meet and experience new people at major meets that are going to be, lifelong friends. I think this is actually, somebody asked how you and I met, and that's kind of how the same scenario. We met at a competition in 2007, I think it was, at a strongman competition. And just being friendly, talk to people, you're warm up the same way, you're sharing things if you have extra food and stuff like that. So I'm always a big fan of bringing more than you actually need to make sure you have enough. It's better to have too much and throw it out there than to not have enough and be searching for it or miserable because you don't have enough water, you don't have enough food, and you're struggling. Bring more than you need.
Yeah, always. That's such a great thing to consider. Yeah, because I've heard of meets going to like 2 a.m. and just fucking miserable.
I had a meet that started at 9 a.m. and I pulled my last deadlift attempt at 12:38 a.m. And so by the time the awards were done, it was 1:30 a.m. And that was the first and only time I've ever eaten at a McDonald's in Port St. Lucie because it was the only thing open.
Fuck that. That meet director is a douchebag for doing that. I don't even know who it is. but I have a
100
suspicion
at the time it was 124 lifters, and it was a single platform meet. So you can imagine that day.
that guy was just chasing money, and I
Yeah,
probably would assume he's probably not putting on meets anymore.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
No, I don't think
makes
so.
sense, right? Fucking assholes. Um, all right, favorite core slash stability exercises. Very much a broad question, guys. If you have a question, try to make it as direct to a certain situation, because the broader the question, the broader the answers, and it doesn't really give us something to pinpoint to truly help you. But anyways, favorite core stability exercises, two totally different things, although you slash them together. So we'll slash them together here. I think anything that's going to have some type of isometric contraction within your core is going to be great, because lo and behold, that's what you want to have when you squat and deadlift. You don't want to have a lot of flexion and extension throughout your core while you're trying to lift maximum weight. So weighted planks are really good. An ab wheel, although it is a dynamic movement, it's an isometric hold of your abdominals if done properly. If done improperly, you're going to hurt your lower back, and it's going to be a flexion and extension movement.
They
Which
go into an extension with the wheel. Yeah.
yeah, ab fallouts with any type of blast strap, same thing as an ab wheel. Another great one. I like glute ham raise sit ups. Is another good one. As long as you set it up right, it's still, you do have hip flexion in it, but you're still keeping a rigid torso throughout. Not a huge fan of anything that's going to have, like I said, flexion and extension throughout your lumbar, and your thoracic, even at that, except for, the McGill sit up looks like there's flexion within your thoracic, but it's not. If you actually look at the McGill sit up, you're trying to elevate your entire upper body in the same movement pattern without having any flexion or extension. And if you can't do that, then obviously there's a weakness. But I think a lot of the McGill stuff is designated to show weaknesses more so than it is designated to build upon those weaknesses. You build upon those weaknesses through certain exercise selections. Any type of unilateral loading and movement. So suitcase carries are really good. Waiter carries are okay, but you're not going to
Sacrificing load.
yeah, you're going to be sacrificing load for stability, and that's something that you don't want in order to build as much core stability and strength as possible. You want it to be rigid. You want it to be a stable surface. I think people think of the idea of stability and they're like, oh, well, how can I make this as unstable as possible? It's like, well, you don't fucking squat and deadlift on a goddamn Bosu ball. Why do you need to make your stability stuff more unstable? It's like, fuck, put your feet on the ground on a flat surface, because that's what you
I see that
fucking
online,
compete on.
It drives me nuts sometimes because I see the rehab guys, and I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but I see people talking about that like, oh, don't do a side bend or a side carry, do a waiter's hold with a bottoms up kettlebell, and then they're demonstrating walking and holding a 20-pound kettlebell upside down. Like, you're not going to be squatting, benching, and deadlifting a 20-pound kettlebell. It has great activation of your interior core, but it's not ideal because that's not how you're loaded. Now, if you front racked a single kettlebell, you might take a 110-pound kettlebell, front rack it, and walk it. And that's going to be a difference of 110 pounds on your frame that you're stabilizing isometrically while you're dynamically moving versus 20 pounds. And that's a very different, like Tony likes to talk about dynamic correspondence, so it carries over. And if you have it in your hand as a suitcase hold, you might be holding 180 pounds in that hand walking. So there's a big difference in loading factor.
None of these baby hands need fucking straps for that kind of weight. I ain't making it 5 steps without dropping that weight.
Yeah, but even so, Tony's getting two benefits. He's going to train grip and that. So you have to look at your core work as, where do you struggle to hold the position? Whether it's dynamically during a wheel rollout or whether it's a plank, are you going into posterior tilt? Are you going into anterior tilt? Are you able to hold a semi-neutral position? Where do you fatigue out the most? Like if you did a side plank and you fatigue out in 10 seconds versus a regular plank and it takes you 60 seconds to fatigue out, you probably don't need to focus so much on planks. You need to focus on side planks because that's obviously a tougher movement for you in that lateral flexion, the lateral anti-flexion that you need to strengthen and stabilize into the bar. Same thing with, the squat pattern. If you're not able to hold the position, doing things like pause zombie squats with some load for 10-second holds are going to teach you to isometrically hold your torso tight and stiff. And people wouldn't think of that as a core exercise, but that's what it is, because you're not going to use enough load for your quads, but you're going to use enough load that you can, stabilize your anterior core under load while they're going through the squat pattern and holding it. That's a great way to use it. So if, instead of doing a bottoms up 20-pound kettlebell walk as a waiter, which is dumb, you're not going to get any much strength carrier for that. That's great if you're a baseball pitcher and you need shoulder stability, but it's not great if you're a powerlifter and you need to lift 700-800 pounds. So for them, a pause front squat, which is absolutely miserable, but if you can hold a 5-second pause front squat, I don't even care if you're breathing, or a zombie squat, you're going to build that core strength within the movement pattern, within the hole that you need to. And that's one of the reasons why people like pause deadlifts, because you're spending time under tension in your weakest position. That's what core strength really is for the powerlifter, is improving your ability to stabilize in your weakest positions. That's how we should view core work or stability work, is how much stronger can I get in my weakest positions? Not necessarily how much stronger can I get at planking, or how many sit-ups can I do? Because those are great and they serve a purpose. But how do I get stronger where I'm breaking down? That's what you will need to identify. So if you have someone who's breaking down within a movement, let's say the squat, then you're going to have them do a front pause squat. Or if you have someone who's breaking down, getting the deadlift off the floor, then maybe you just have them do isometric holds 1 inch off the floor, holding as long as they can and breathing, because they're going to strengthen that position. That's core and stability work for that athlete, as opposed to just the McGill method, which is rehab based.
Right. Yeah. So true, man. There's so many things that are out there that are good, but they're also, context is everything, right? If they're from a rehab setting, those are great from a point where you can't lift any weights because you're injured, to progressing to the ability to lift weights. But if you're at that point where I'm already optimally ready to perform, I can lift weights, I don't have injuries, or even if you do have injuries, but you can still lift, you have to think about it in the terms that Trevor just described. It's like, don't think so much of the smaller auxiliary stuff. That's not gonna be the main driver of your actual movements. The main driver of your movements are the main movements, just fucking more time under tension, more time under load. Those things are, variations. That's what builds those up there, and kind of relates back to the question, right? Of the one guy who asked about hips rising, chest caving type of deal. It's like, yes, your accessories should translate into building that, right? It's like, if you're doing a front squat, which would be almost impossible to do, but like, say you're doing a front pause squat and you're like just rounding over because that feels the most comfortable, that's not going to fucking have the same transfer. Same, like SSB squats is a little bit more like actual, the people that like round it over and they're doing pause squats and their elbows are resting on their thighs. And it's like, you're not fucking doing anything to build your core stability. You're just making the exercise easier so you can lift more weight so you can post it on Instagram. It's like, that's not the point of the exercises. Exercise selection and execution are so critical. And if you're doing everything right and you're working on a weak area, you're going to feel fucking weak, and that's okay. You don't need to fight. You don't need to be strong at every movement. Trust me, it's not going to happen.
Absolutely. You just need to get stronger within your weakest position. That's actual stability work.
Right. And if you have a 1,600-pound total or below, every position is your weaker position.
And small men have been identified as less than 198. Thank God I only weigh in there, but my walk around's like 206, 207.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not over 200 pounds and you're a man, are you really a man? I mean, right, ladies, am I right? Seriously, come on. Yeah, right. The bigger you are, the more you actually get noticed by men. So it's a weird dynamic for sure.
So if your goals are to get noticed by men,
well, yeah.
What you're saying is you should be a bigger man.
Yeah, exactly.
Bear hunting. Tony's tips on bear hunting.
You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. This is a relationship podcast as well.
Jack of all trades.
That's what we do, man. So that, somebody did ask us how we met. And you kind of touched on that. We met through the great sport of strongman. It's back in the day. Little chubby Trevor was trying to be a strongman competitor, and slender Tony just got out of the military, trained for a month, decided to show up to a novice competition and beat the pants off of chubby Trevor.
Wipe the floor. I think you won like 4 events.
Yeah.
5. It was bad. It's badass kicking.
Yeah, I don't want to win 5. That would just be demoralizing, because we had one guy, you know who I'm talking about, who did novice for like 10 years in a row. And I just felt bad because I wanted him to win something. He did novice for 10 years in a row. So
trophy hunting.
He deserved to win. Yeah. But yeah, that's how we met. But we became friends through the ability of Trevor's kindness, right? he went out of his way to help me build my first business. He went out of his way to give me educational stuff on how to grow business, on marketing and sales, and that's when we became like really really good friends. Was the fact that he was so kind to someone that he knew a little bit through competition, but we didn't know that great. He let me come down. He let me check out his gym. We hung out and talked. I think we had lunch, and we just talked business and we talked training, and that's really how we became good friends. Was the fact that he was so kind and willing to let someone else in and be able to share with him his knowledge and his experience to help him out and be very selfless is a great way to build friends. You know, the fact that he had no skin in the game. I didn't pay him. I wasn't going to give him a percentage of my profits because of, you know, he didn't try to sell me on a $5,000 2-month mentorship program. He just fucking helped me out. Like that's what, and you meet those kind of people. You're like, I want to be around those people more often. And then you have to ask yourself, well, am I that person too? Or am I just trying to be around people that are helping me and I'm just not taking, I'm not ever helping them. You don't want to be that asshole because those people suck too, you know? So
it is the greatest thing about this. I don't even want to say the sport because we talk about the powerlifting. It was strongman at the time, but that's what I love about it is that connection you make with people and you have shared interests and you can help somebody else out. And I'm a big believer in reciprocity, and it always does come back to you in some kind of way. Like you've recommended things to me over the time, or I've been able to meet people through you over time, and vice versa. So it's like if you lead with a giving hand, you're especially in any competition you do, you're gonna find new friends, you're gonna find people that help you. And I am such an introvert and antisocial person. So the fact that I have all these friends and all these people I can count on and network to and ask questions to and send to is amazing. It's just really, really funny to me because like I was like the shyest, scaredest kid. I talked about in the first ever Beyond the Platform podcast I did. Like I was afraid to powerlift because I didn't want to put a singlet on. Right. Look at me now. You know, you grow up the sport, but that is the most important thing when you are competing. I know Gabriel asked a question about, you know, the international and national level meets. Go there with the intention of meeting people and establishing friendships and network because, you know, if you get to a certain level and you're going to these major meets, you're going to see the same people. And when you show up and you see a friendly face, it makes your day easier. It makes your life easier. When you show up and you don't know anyone, you get nervous. So right away, introduce yourself to people, establish friendships. If, especially at the local level, you see the same people over and over and over again, they're going to help you. It's going to make it more fun and more enjoyable for the sport because we are doing this for fun.
Yeah. And just another tip for you, Gabriel. Don't be the fucking weirdo that goes to a meet, doesn't talk to anyone, and then you DM them the next day, be like, hey man, saw you in the warm-up room, huge fan, I just didn't want to come up and talk to you. God, those people are fucking weird. Just come up and talk to whoever you want. For fuck's sakes, if they're an asshole, you're gonna find out if they're an asshole. But man, don't be that person that just climbs into the DMs the next day, be like, hey man,
I get that sometimes.
Yeah, I do too.
And then like all of a sudden, like this guy or girl will start like instantly following every single person who's on the roster at the meet, but doesn't say anything to them or do anything to them. And it's like, this is kind of creepy. Don't, from someone who's antisocial, instantly talk to people because it makes the warm-up room that much more pleasurable and easy, and you can communicate to each other what numbers you need and helping you load it. It makes so much more sense to go out of your way to talk to people, unless they're from Wenatchee in the Pacific Northwest and they don't know Dave Osborne. Then you're screwed.
Yeah, seriously. But I mean, no matter how big of a lifter you are, how famous, how social media famous you are, people fucking love when you get someone that comes up to you like, oh hey man, huge fan, you're blah blah blah. You're like, oh yeah, I am that person. Oh, it's so nice of you to fucking boost my ego right now. Let's be friends is the way I look at it. Yeah. And also, don't overstay your welcome. If the conversation has like a 30-second pause in it, that probably means the other person's done. Don't just keep standing there.
Yeah, that happened at the ritual meet where someone was talking to you and I, and then like we just stopped talking, and we're like, I don't know what to say now. This is all I have.
That's all I got, man. That's all I got. You have to either continue the conversation or just slowly walk away.
And that weird moment where like you don't actually know who they are, but they know who you are.
Yeah.
And then you're like, they send you messages, and I think Tony was talking about, I'm not going to mention who, but he was talking about somebody was messaging him for like 7 months before he realized he didn't actually follow them back. And then he's like, do I follow back or just leave it as is, or maybe I can sneak it in there somehow?
Yes.
It does happen. Just remember, social media is not a real world. It's a made-up world. It's a method of communication.
How dare you, sir? How dare you? I have 14,000.1 friends that would disagree with you.
I should probably follow all of them back then.
You should. You should.
Including the weird guys that drop in my DM and ask if I'll pose. So no, I won't.
Oh man.
I get a
Interest.
couple.
How much? How much they offering?
Never come up with an offer. They just want to know if I want individual sponsorship,
Don't
and
be
then they
cheap,
can,
guys. If you're gonna need to see somebody in their skimpies, you better start throwing out some monies. I'm talking about at least four figures. At least four.
definitely.
Get it together, guys. All right, that is it for the questions. Thanks for all the questions, guys. We really appreciate it. If there's any questions that you guys have, don't wait for us to put out the post to put them in there. I had somebody reach out and be like, hey, man, I always have these questions that pop up. Can I just ask you them without you actually having the little question box? I'm like, yeah, of course. So ask questions throughout the week, guys. Well, if they're really good and insightful questions, we'll try to wait and answer them on the podcast. If there's something that we can answer really fast, then we'll just answer them really fast. But we're here to help you guys as much as we can. People always message me like, oh, I know you're really busy. Like, I'm not as busy as you think I am. Trust me.
I am.
I love answering questions. If you send me 10 videos and you ask me to critique each one, I'm going to block you and call you an asshole. But if you have a question, you should definitely ask questions. But no, we appreciate it, guys. And if you want to support the companies that support us, we have Subject Zero supplements. They just came out with a hydration formula, intra-workout formula, and a pre-workout stim-free focus and pump formula as well. People have been mixing...
Two of them right in here. The restoration. I'm sorry, restoration. Replenish is in here, and so is the intro workout, the Pursue.
You're drinking. You're gonna be fucking diabetic. You're drinking carbs and replenish thing. Jesus Christ.
Well, okay, so this was from my training session. You're talking to me like a half hour, 45 minutes after I finished my training session. So this is left over from my training session.
Yeah, so it's a great way to induce a diabetic coma. If you want diabetes type 2 and you're really having a hard time trying to figure it out, just sip on the intra workout throughout the day. But yeah, check out the company, subject0sups.com or subject0_sups on Instagram. Also check out RP Diet, check out Metrolife, Ritual Apparel. They're coming out with a new drop the same day that this episode drops, which would be Friday, August 28th. Check out Iron Rebel.
Iron Rebel. Dude, I got the new sleeves. They're really comfortable.
Are they going to add 50 pounds to your squat?
Yeah, they don't help me lift any more weight. They don't make me like 50 pounds stronger.
I want the kind.
But they are super comfortable.
Message Andy and Luke. Is that who it is? Luke?
Yeah, Luke.
And tell them I want some illegal type of elasticity in there. Maybe some springy material that's very much illegal, but you can hide. That will allow me to become a strong lifter again because I need all the help I can get. So please.
They're called knee wraps.
No. I need knee wraps that look a lot like knee sleeves if I'm ever going to compete again.
So we're going to start our new apparel company with accessory gear. We're going to call them slaps. They're like knee sleeves with wraps. They're slaps.
Yeah, and the brand's going to be called "If You're Not Cheating, You're Not Trying."
That's right.
Support us.
Skin the win.
Exactly. Also, check out Trevor and Riley's new podcast, Successories, on Spotify and on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on YouTube now. We're still waiting on approval for iTunes and Google. Who knew that took like 3 weeks? Not me, because that was one of those things that we're figuring out on the go.
Yeah, they say 3 weeks, but it'll be a lot sooner. And also check out Riley just had her website post and drop, and she has some cool habitual strength t-shirts on there. So check her out, support her, because she actually keeps a lot of the companies that support us running. So we appreciate her a lot. But yeah, thanks for all the questions, guys. We'll be back next week to answer some more. Thank you, Trevor, for your magnificent time and presence.
Yeah, I'm going to farm this out next week. It's going to be my $10 task. I'm going to pay some guy to answer the question. I'm going to go do the lawn instead.
Got an Indian call center guy checking in to answer questions for Trevor. Welcome to the show, sir. His name's going to be like Bob. It's like, no, your name's not Bob. It's something else. You just can't pronounce it. All right, man. Take care, buddy. I'll talk to you later.